same chapter that we were discussing yesterday, the last hadith that was left, Bab Bir al-Walid al-Mushrik, the chapter heading of being dutiful or fulfilling the rights justly of a polytheist father. So a mushrik father and your responsibility that still lies. Yesterday we went over the hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and also the hadith of Asma bint Abi Bakr, Asma radiallahu ta'ala anha, and her relationship with her mother Qayla. Today's hadith, Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, he says, Sami'tu Ibn Umar yaqul, Abdullah ibn Dinar says, I heard Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma saying, Ra'a Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu hullatan siyara'a tuba'u. On one occasion, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu saw a garment, siyara, a garment. This is the title that was given, that was being sold in the marketplace. Many different commentators discuss what's meant by siyara. One is that it's a garment that consists of two pieces of clothing. So it's almost like a full, both top and bottom. And some say that the characteristic of a siyara garment is that it's majority made of silk. It's made out of the silk fabric. فَقَالَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. So when Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu saw this, he said, O Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِبْتَعْ هَذِهِ فَأَلْبِسْهَا يَوْمَ الْجُمْعَةِ وَإِذَا جَاءَكَ الْوُفُودِ. That, O Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, purchase this, فَأَلْبِسْهَا يَوْمَ الْجُمْعَةِ, and wear it on the day of Jum'ah, وَإِذَا جَاءَكَ الْوُفُودِ, and when delegations come to meet you. In this hadith, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, إِبْتَعْ هَذِهِ, purchase this. In another hadith, it's mentioned that Umar radiallahu ta'ala said to the Prophet, Ya Rasulullah, give me the permission that I purchase this for you. That allow me that I purchase this, and the objective being that, inshallah, you wear it on the day of Jum'ah, and on when delegations come to meet you. قال إنما يلبس هذه من لا خلاق له. The Prophet ﷺ says, indeed, only those wear this type of clothing who has no share in the hereafter. What share from what, inshallah, we'll discuss in a minute. فأتي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم منها بحلل. Later, the Prophet ﷺ was bought garments similar to this. So whether that be through spoils of war or someone came and gave it to the Prophet ﷺ, it's not disclosed, but similar garments that Umar radiallahu ta'ala wanted the Prophet ﷺ to purchase were bought to the Prophet ﷺ. فَأَرْسَلَ إِلَى عُمَرْ بِحُلَّةٍ. And from those garments, which were similar to what Umar radiallahu ta'ala asked the Prophet ﷺ to purchase, the Prophet ﷺ sent something almost identical to Umar radiallahu ta'ala as a gift. So when Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu received this faqal, he said, كَيْفَ أَلْبِسُهَا وَقَدْ قُلْتَ فِيهَا مَا قُلْتَ. Ya Rasulullah, how do you expect me to wear this when you said what you said about these types of garments? Meaning, when I asked you to purchase, or when I asked to purchase this on your behalf, you said no, and you said only those types of people wear this who have no share in the hereafter. And now you're sending me the same type of garment, Ya Rasulullah, how can I wear it? قال إني لم أعطيكها لتلبسها. The Prophet said, I didn't gift this to you so that you wear it. That's not why I've given it to you. ولكن تبيعها أو تكسوها. Either sell it and use the profits, أو تكسوها, or give it to somebody else to wear. Again, you might inquire, how does that work? Inshallah, we'll get there, inshallah. فأرسل بها عمر إلى أخ له من أهل مكة. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu decided to gift this garment that was given to him by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he couldn't wear because it was of clothing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said not to wear. He sent it to one of his brothers in Mecca who had not yet accepted Islam. Okay. Many implications in this hadith. قبل أن يسلم, prior to him accepting Islam. Let's try and summarize and understand some aspects of this, inshallah. من لا خلاق له. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, only those types of people wear this clothing who have no share in the hereafter. The muhaddithun, they mention two explanations for this. Number one, مَنْ لَا خَلَاقَ لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ. The person will have no share of anything in the hereafter. So this is a very serious implication. That only those types of people wear this clothing who have nothing to look forward to in the hereafter. Number one. Number two, some muhaddithun, they say that many of the things that are made impermissible in this world would have a different characteristic and made permissible in the hereafter. So for example, we know of the rivers of Jannah, min ma'in ghayri asin, min labanin lam yataghayyar ta'muh, wa min khamrin ladhatin lisharibin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there is water that doesn't go off, foul smell does not come into it. Labanin lam yataghayyar ta'muh, milk, the taste of which never distorts, it doesn't go bad. Wa khamr ladhatul lisharibin, and a type of alcohol, not the alcohol that we understand, but a type of alcohol that's its effect in the hereafter is ladhatul lisharibin, which will be pleasurable for the one who drinks it. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to, the difference between the alcohol and intoxicant in this world, is that alcohol has an adverse effect on the one who consumes it. There may be temporary euphoria in the terms of an intoxicant entering you, but its adverse effect is that it gives you a headache. You wake up the next morning and you wish that you didn't do what you did the last night. You wish that you didn't drink. You have a hangover. So khamr ladhatul lisharibin, the khamr in the hereafter is not of this ilk, of not this type. It'll actually give ladha and pleasure to the one who consumed it in the hereafter. So there is an example of something that's haram in this world, but halal in the hereafter. So similarly, the Prophet ﷺ has made certain types of clothing haram for certain people in this world. So in this case, it's gender specific. And you can understand that through the latter of the hadith. That the wearing of silk, or where the majority of the clothing is silk, just like gold has been made haram upon males. And so the hadith, according to the muhaddithun, mean, one understanding is that man la khalaqa lahu min hulalil jannah, who will have no share of the clothing of Jannah in the hereafter. Meaning, this person will be deprived of the special ni'mah, just like there's a special ni'mah of consuming a type of alcohol in the hereafter. Here, the Prophet ﷺ is telling us, according to this understanding, that this person will have no share from the special attire of the silk that will be given to be worn to the inhabitants of Jannah. And sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the punishment in this type of manner. That if He forbids something in this world, then the punishment of taking that thing up is you are deprived of it in the hereafter. You might attain Jannah, but that element of ni'mah that Allah bestows and gift that Allah bestows that you violated in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deprives that in the hereafter. So the understanding, and you find many examples of this, where certain people, based on certain sin that they commit, will be deprived of the fragrance of Jannah. This is the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps people in check, that do what you're supposed to do and don't do what you're not supposed to do. These are the implications of it. So that's one understanding. That's the second understanding of يَلْبِسُ هَذِهِ مَنْ لَا خَلَاقَ لَهُ. Just to go back, one version of this hadith, Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, not in a marketplace, he saw an individual, Utarid ibn Hajib, he was one of the leaders of the Quraysh. And his job was that he used to be with the delegations when they used to come to the Quraysh. And Utarid, because of this special sort of position that he held in the Quraysh, he would wear very, very expensive and flamboyant clothing, because he had to meet with the delegations. And in one variation of the hadith, it wasn't just the delegation. Utarid ibn Hajib once met Kisra, the Chosroes. And when he met him, he was given this from the clothing of the Chosroes himself. And so he brought this back to the Arabian Peninsula. He brought it back to Makkah al-Mukarramah. And when Umar radiallahu ta'ala saw it on Utarid, he said, Ya Rasulullah, this is what the Chosroes was wearing. So grant me the permission that I purchase it for you so that you wear it on the day of Jumu'ah. Because the Prophet ﷺ has explained and has highlighted, and it's from the Sunan, to wear your best attire, best garment on the day of Jumu'ah. Not necessarily new, but good. And so he said, Ya Rasulullah, when delegations come to meet you, then let us have you dressed in such attire as well. So on that, the Prophet ﷺ responded that this type of clothing, the material and the fabric that this person is wearing, لا يلبس هذه من لا خلاق له, that only those individuals wear it who have no share either in the hereafter or from the garments of Jannah. فأرسل إلى عمر بحلة. The Prophet ﷺ then receives this, and instead of the Prophet ﷺ's habit generally was that much that came to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ would gift away. This was sadaqah nafila, optional charity or optional hadaya in giving to others. It was a staple of the Prophet ﷺ. Very seldom did something come to the Prophet ﷺ and it stayed with the Prophet ﷺ. Much of what came to the Prophet ﷺ would come and would be immediately distributed. And this, the Azwaj al-Mutahharat picked up on this. Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu ta'ala anha, once Abdullah bin Zubair radiyallahu ta'ala an, her nephew, he was seated and a large amount of money came to Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha. Abdullah ibn Zubair radiyallahu ta'ala anhu at one point became so worried with our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala that he said that someone needs to intervene with Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, because whatever comes to her, nothing remains. She gives everything away. Once some sadaqah, some hadaya were sent to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha's house, and it was placed inside the house, and Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha called her maid servant, and she said, break this, let's distribute, taqseem, this wealth into this portion, go and give to this person, this go and give to this widow, go and give this to this person, this to this person, and everything that came she distributed. So she fulfilled the commandment, and then she came back, and the day passed by, and the sun was beginning to set, the adhan was about to be called for Maghrib, and Aisha radiallahu ta'ala said that, what do we have to break our fast with today? To her maidservant. And the maidservant said, we have nothing to break the fast with. And then she said to Aisha radiallahu ta'ala, if only you had told me to keep something back, we could have used it to break our fast. Aisha radiallahu ta'ala's distance from the dunya was such, she said, I didn't even know that we had nothing. What was in her house wasn't there? I don't know. Whatever came, she gave. And where did she learn this from? From Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet ﷺ would give, whatever came, gave. So he gave this clothing, this piece, this garment, the top and bottom, to Umar radiallahu ta'ala. Umar radiallahu ta'ala said, subhanallah, what does this mean? What are the implications of this? Because Ya Rasulullah, you said only those people wear this who have no share in the hereafter. Does that mean I have no share, Ya Rasulullah? Why do you want me to wear this? The Sahaba Kiram's mizaj, their thinking, their understanding, their psychology was so different to ours. It was the complete, subhanAllah. Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, when Sahibu Sirri Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when the secret keeper of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he was informed of the list of the munafiqun. And so Umar radiallahu ta'ala would go to him periodically and say, don't tell me the whole list, but tell me whether I'm on that list or not. You don't have to give me the names of everybody else, but tell me whether I'm on that list or not. That their mizaj, their way of thinking was totally different. Umar radiallahu ta'ala, when he's given this, if we're given a gift, where it came from, how it came, no questions. Umar radiallahu immediately, Ya Rasulullah, you're giving me something that you yourself said is not good. So the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنِّي لَمْ أُعْتِقْهَا لِتَلْبِسَهَا. I've not given this to you so that you wear it. But تَبِيعُهَا أَوْ تَكْسُوهَا, so that you can sell this garment or that you can give it to somebody else to wear. Now this teaches us two points here. Number one, to sell something that's not permissible for you but maybe permissible for others. Because the Prophet ﷺ would not have made it permissible to sell something that's impermissible for everybody else. It may be impermissible for Umar radiallahu ta'ala, but not impermissible for somebody else. And that's where we learn that in this hadith it tells us that for males, the Muslim male, it was made impermissible, and for females, it was made permissible. So it tells us that you're allowed to sell something that may not be allowed for yourself, but if the Sharia permits it for somebody else, then it's allowed. And other than women, who else is it allowed for? We find at the end of the hadith that Umar radiallahu ta'ala sent it to his brother who had not yet accepted Islam. So the second thing we learn is that the rules of the Sharia are applicable to not non-Muslims, applicable to Muslims. The rules, the legislation of the Sharia, when I first joined Tooting Islamic Center, when I was the Imam there was an article in the paper that there were a group of Muslims going around East London beating up people at the time of Salah, Muslim or non-Muslim. Now why aren't you reading? So they were going around when Salah time was taking place, and if they caught somebody not performing prayer, then whether they're Muslim or not, they were attacking them. The legislation of the Sharia is applicable to the Muslims, not to the non-Muslims. And so Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he received this garment, the Prophet gave dispensation to either sell it so he could profit from it, or number two, to make somebody else be the owner and wear it. Umar radiallahu ta'ala decided to send it to his brother, who happened to be a non-Muslim at that time. What is the relationship between this hadith and Bab and the chapter? Because we were speaking about being dutiful to your mushrik father. The relationship is that if Umar radiallahu ta'ala was being good to his brother, then even more, it's even more important that you are dutiful to your father. Understand? That's the relationship between this hadith and the chapter heading. And so Imam Bukhari rahimahullah establishes through this hadith that Umar radiallahu ta'ala was showing consideration and good conduct and good behavior towards his brother, who happened to be a mushrik. Then more than that, it's a responsibility to show good conduct, good behavior and goodness towards your father, who may be a mushrik. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all the understanding. The next chapter inshallah we'll go over tomorrow. Allah grant me the understanding, all of you the understanding. Quickly, the mas'ala of today, we're already late because Asr was later today. We were looking at the invalidators of fasting. What invalidates the fast? And yesterday we looked at the mouth. Today, one of the passages that invalidates the fast is the nose. And we're looking at accidental aspects whereby doing something, qadha becomes necessary but not kafara. Qadha but not kafara. So number one, wudu that sniffed, a water that's sniffed during wudu or ghusl, and you exaggerate that and it goes up beyond this upper bone here and it reaches a sensation towards the brain, or it goes down your throat, that invalidates the fast. Again, it's why during wudu, the ulama, they say, do not over-exaggerate sniffing the water. Under general, normal circumstances, yes, but not whilst fasting. Similarly, if you have to make ghusl, again, not over-exaggerating that the water goes beyond and ends up in your throat or towards where you get that funny sensation in your brain. Number one, water. Number two, which many people make a mistake with, they think that there isn't a passage from the nose to the throat and to the stomach, and they inhale medicine. Inhaling medicine through the nasal passage invalidates your fast. From the orifices on the face, the eyes and the nose have a clear, even the eyes, the eye passage is extremely small. The eyes and the nose have a direct link to the throat. The ears, originally the ulama mentioned that there's a passage as well. Later, medical science says that there isn't a direct passage from the ears to the throat. So the ulama have changed their stance. As Mufti Rafi Sahib Usmani, and from Pakistan, he mentions that unless the ear is perforated, if there's a hole inside the ear, if not, then there is no direct link, and if water goes in the ear, it does not invalidate your fast. But when it goes through your nose, up your nose and down, and it gets into that throat area, nasal sprays will invalidate the fast. If you put the nasal spray and it stays inside here, then it won't. But if that goes up, even a small amount, amounts don't matter when it comes to invalidating the fast. That it has to be 2 mil or 3 mil, of, even if it's a drop. If it goes up that passage and comes down towards your throat, then sniffing through an inhaler will invalidate the fast. Taking a steam, so you have, people when they're ill, they put Vicks in water, hot water, and they put the towel over that. That steam, the vapor that raises, if it goes up your nose and it comes down, your fast is invalidated. But because this is not deliberate, your intention is only for the nose. That's why the result of that is not a penalty, but just the qada. So if someone is to use an inhaler or a spray through the nose for medicinal purposes, it will, if it reaches those orifices, if it reaches the throat, it will invalidate the fast. And by invalidating the fast, one would have to do qada afterwards, repeat that fast as a broken fast, but not kafara, not expiation. And finally, inhaling smoke by one's own doing, not smoking. Smoke is there, and you go by and you inhale the smoke. And just by inhaling, and it goes down to that throat area. This is the crucial part, that it goes through the throat area. And when you're inhaling, if it's through the nose, or if you take it in through the mouth, it's the same thing. If it reaches that throat area, even though it's not you smoking, but you deliberately taking that in, then that will result in your fast being broken and a qada is necessary. That's under the circumstance that smoke, or whatever it is, doesn't benefit you. If it benefits you, there's another implication. But generally, we're just talking about if there's smoke around and you walk by and you take and you whiff that in. Then if it reaches that throat area, then it does invalidate the fast and qada is necessary. Allah grant us all the understanding. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.